Hello and welcome to Empire of Wargames. My name is ePlesh and today we are going to talk about Age of Sigmar Dominion and if it was a success. We will take a look at the general reception of the community, what else is waiting around the corner when it comes to Dominion, and how the launch went. If you would like to support the channel, consider leaving a thumbs up, subscribing, and checking the links down in the description below as it helps the channel a bunch. Alright, let's get into the video. Alright, so as of the time of uploading the video, we are a couple of days away from the actual release of Warhammer Age of Sigmar Dominion. And as you can see on their Games Workshop page, you can still obtain a box, which is unusual when looking at GW's track record over the last 6 months or 12 months even. A popular example was Warhammer 40k's box Indomitus, which sold out within minutes. Luckily, Games Workshop offered made-to-order boxes for everyone who wanted one, so there are still plenty around. There are still some stores where you can actually get an Indomitus box, and that's honestly how it should be. I understand the point of limited boxes to get people introduced or to get people interested and hyped on a new edition of a game. But I also think that there's a lot of merit to have, especially for Games Workshop, because they're printing money basically, to have boxes available for a little longer. They are not permanent and everyone knows that, and it's fine. But yeah, having them disappear within the minutes, similar to Cursed City or base Indomitus at release, is not how things should go. And Dominion didn't go that way. And that's actually great to see. Pre-orders are meant to be, for pre-orders, for people who are really, really excited and want to have the box on release. But I really think a customer should be able to go into a store and be able to pick up a box at least a week or two after official release. I think that's the goal GW should strive for, and it looks like Dominion will hit that target. So I've seen a lot of speculation if the Age of Sigmar Dominion box was a success. Because if it doesn't sell out within minutes, is it really successful? And we are working with highly incomplete information here. So take it with a grain of salt. There will be a lot of speculation. As I said, a lot of imperfect information, but we are trying to work with what we have. Alright, so first up, GW themselves said that they printed a lot of copies of this box. And to be fair, they said that with Indomitus as well. But it seems that Indomitus sold out immediately while Dominion didn't. And we don't have hard numbers on the copies they produced, the number of copies sold. So yeah, there's not really anything to go off of here. As far as I know, GW doesn't release any numbers, similar to video game companies, for example, who enjoy, promoting their games by saying, hey, we sold 5 million copies of our game. It's really popular. Maybe you should try it out. GW doesn't really do that. So it's difficult to say what is the matter here. The other thing that is important to mention when it comes to copies sold is the popularity of said game or system or miniature range. And it is the fact that Warhammer Age of Sigmar, according to a lot of third-party retailers, is the less popular game by quite a bit. For every 40k box they sell, or for every Age of Sigmar box they sell, I should rather say, they are selling 3 or 2 at least Warhammer 40k boxes. And that's a huge disparity when it comes to popularity, if you think about it. It really adds up over the course of a year and over the course of all the releases you see happening at Games Workshop and over at Warhammer Community. So there are 2 things to consider. How many copies did they print? Did they print really a lot more than Indomitus? Because I have the feeling that they did print more, but I'm not sure how much more. And the popularity of the system, which is undeniably a little bit lower than for Warhammer 40k. Now, the other thing we have to consider are the armies included. Indomitus included Space Marines, which are the #1 played faction in Warhammer 40k, and it's not even close. And just a ton of players play Space Marines, or at least have a small army, a kill team, or something, and they didn't feel bad adding Space Marines to their army. a lot of people were interested in the new Necrons, maybe starting a new army, or they sold them, or they didn't mind them. Necrons are a very popular faction. Ever since their reboot 10 years ago, their lore is very interesting. Of course, Matt Ward screwed up a lot of stuff, but their current books are very good. So I think Necrons were a smart choice to include, just to prevent another box full of power armor versus power armor. So the general popularity of the armies inside the Indomitus box was rather high, or the anticipation was at least very high. When it comes to Age of Sigmar, the playing field and the armies are way more spread out. They have new army releases, it feels like once every 3 months. So the player base is super split. So making these battle boxes or 2-player boxes is not as easy for Games Workshop. Obviously, Stormcast Eternals are the most played faction, but I've seen some numbers floating around the internet that around 12% of the player base are actually Stormcast Eternal players, which is a very small margin. That's not a lot of players compared to the whatever 50% Space Marine players in Warhammer 40k. That's insanely lower. And the next most popular factions seem to be the Orc War Clans or the Destruction Armies. I think it was Orcs in specific, which sat right around 10%, which is still fine. But yeah, it's way more difficult to gauge which armies to include for an Age of Sigmar box compared to Warhammer 40k. Space Marines are just a safe option, and whatever you include with them will become popular on its own. So yeah, basically Indomitus forced Necrons to be a popular faction, and I don't think Dominion has that power, if that makes sense. Another point that is interesting to discuss are the models themselves and their visual design and style. The Indomitus box was relatively safe. Necrons are very simple to paint, and they look very quote-unquote neutral. You can do whatever you want with them. They're basically a blank slate, and so are Space Marines. So these are very safe armies to pick. Their design language is very straightforward. If you look at them, you'll understand what I mean. And there is something slightly similar to Stormcast Eternals, although Stormcast have a set theme. There's lightning everywhere, and their armor is very specific, and their visual design is a little bit more defined compared to Space Marines, I find. But a lot of people seem to enjoy them, and so do I. Now, when it comes to the Orcs, I was positively surprised with the reception of the community. I usually always considered Orc players to be fans of the goofy Orcs, the Scottish accent, a little bit weird, a little bit goofy, but you know, the funny Orcs, the comedic relief Orcs. And once I saw the new Orcs, I thought to myself, okay, I'm not sure how many people are going to be interested in those, because they're a completely different kind of Orc. They're way more stealthy, they are more mean looking. They look like Lord of the Rings Orcs, a lot of people said, and I find that description very fitting. They look mean. And that's not something I expected to see out of the Orc range, to be completely honest. And thus I expected them to be the half that, sells less and you'll see a lot of on eBay. But it turns out it is the other way around. A lot of people like mean and a little bit more realistic, grungy looking Orcs. And that's a very positive surprise. I really enjoyed that GW took that risk and that it pays off, because yeah, the Orcs are just great. I personally won't collect them. I picked up a box of Dominion, but I will be getting the Stormcast while a friend of mine will be getting the Orcs, and we will be trying out the box as soon as it gets here. And this is also the part where I would be interested to hear your opinion. Do you like the new Orcs? Do you prefer the goofy Orcs? I mean, one doesn't make the other disappear, obviously, but I would be curious to hear what you think about the Orc range, and especially if you think that something similar could be done in 40k, and do you think it would work? That would be a very interesting thing to think about. Other than that, do I think Dominion is a success? It does very much seem so. I don't think you should measure success on the availability of a product. That doesn't make any sense. If it sells out instantly, that means, yes, it is very, very popular, but it also means that demand is higher than the production, which is bad because a lot of consumers and fans will be left hanging. And that's not something you want to do as a company. So I'm glad GW went the extra mile and possibly created more boxes than with past releases. And I really, really hope that, you know, transfers over to the battle forces on the holiday season. Right around Christmas, GW always releases 4 Age of Sigmar battle forces and 6 Warhammer 40k battle forces. That may change, but they are sold out almost immediately if they are good. There was a Necron battle force last year. It sold out immediately because it was an insane box with insane value, and the list in there was pretty good and very playable. Meanwhile, the Astra Militarum box was not that great, so it stayed on the shelves and so on. But yeah, we will have to wait and see. Okay, so lastly, what is the downside for Games Workshop here? And the only downside I can think of is that Games Workshop is going to have to pay a little bit more for shelf space and storage space. I don't know if they necessarily pay for that kind of stuff, but it's a resource, it's limited, and they don't have unlimited storage space. So Dominion will definitely take up a little bit of that as time goes on, but I think it will decrease as well because Dominion is a great box. It is relatively cheap for what you're getting, and it will sell out at some point. It definitely will. So yeah, that's the only downside for Games Workshop I can think of, and I think it's a worth downside when considering that you're making a lot of customers happy, no one is angry, no one is left hanging, and everyone who wants one gets one. And that's the goal. All right, that's generally my opinion. I would be curious to hear if you picked up a Dominion box, if you're interested in the armies, and what your general, perception of the Dominion box is, especially when looking at Indomitus, which is a direct comparison. And yeah, I would just like to hear your opinion on the box in general. Thanks so much for watching, and I see you in the next video. Bye bye.